And we got to thank Photo Shelter. They are good enough to allow us to use their library system, and that's how we get to see all this. So it's pretty nice. So I'm just going to click through and let you guys carry on.
Okay, great, thanks. So Tina and I spoke a couple days ago so that we were a little prepared for this. And I thought that it might be useful for me to just say that when I work with emerging photographers and students and on any story or a long-term project, I ask them to think about especially three things: the idea, the access, and the tenacity to, that they need to have to work on a long-term project like this. And so, for instance, is your idea topical? Is it timely? Is it timeless? Is it feasible? Is it full of visual potential? Will other people care about it? Are there enough variety in the aspects to explore for it to be a long-term project? And then access. Can you get access? Will the access be difficult to maintain? How volatile is the situation? In the case of COVID and stuff, will it be safe for you? Will there be something that happens that will be dangerous? How will you be prepared for that? And then tenacity. Do you have the time? Can you keep going back? Will the people be agreeable for you to keep returning to their lives? And so when I was talking to Tina about this presentation tonight too, I said, it would be great for her to just give us her elevator pitch for this story, which any editor wants to hear, which is who, what, when, where, and why. And what I found when I was at Nat Geo is that the why has really changed to why now. Even a magazine like National Geographic wants to know why this story is important right now. So Tina's going to give us her elevator pitch, and then we can continue looking through the images and talk about themes and challenges and things like that. Tina?
Yes. All right. Here's my elevator pitch. So in late April, I started to photograph my own family members who live in Hernando, which is a small town in Central Florida. And the project is still ongoing. It explores a multi-generational family consisting of 6 people living together. They lived together before the outbreak, but they still live together now during the outbreak. The people are Barb and Mike, who are the grandparents, Tara, who is their daughter, and then Tara has 3 kids, Aubrey, Aiden, and Adriel, and then my own mother, her name's Julie, which is Barb's sister. And so the photo project explores the complexities of multiple people living together and the stresses of everyday life in quarantine. It explores, within stress, it explores topics of like trying to get your children to learn virtually because they're all small children. Then on top of that, Tara is going back to school. She's working part-time and she's trying to make sure her children are still cared for. And then she used to get a lot of help from her mother, Barb, but her health is declining, so she can't really care for her children anymore. So when my mother moved out in May, my mom found herself back at the house all the time, taking care of the kids when Tara couldn't. So with children, it also explores like the range of emotions that children feel from being bored to being hyper to being emotional to not listening, being bad like all kids are sometimes. And then as school opened back up, Tara is forced to put her kids in school because she can't homeschool them. And so it also shows like a family slowly integrating back into society during a global pandemic. And then general topics include single parenting, economics, relationships, and then also for Tara, it's recovering from drug addiction, and there's education as well.
Great. So, Tina, in the course of this project, can you talk about some of the challenges that you've faced in trying to produce this story?
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge is communication. And I thought that that would be easy considering I'm related to all these people. However, it was more difficult with them than other photo stories I've done. It's just because, you know, my family isn't the type of family to like share a lot of information. So it's me having to constantly call them or text message them and finding out what's happening because I wouldn't know what's happening unless I constantly bug them.
Do you think that's a lot different from other long-term stories? I know that often you do sort of have to constantly keep in touch with the people to find out what's going on. But I mean, the lucky thing is that at least you can call your mother and say, "What's going on?"
Yeah, I've had to do that actually. It's like, what's going on with them? Why aren't they answering their phones? But yeah, I would say that that's always a challenge with every photo project because, you know, people live their lives. So
looking at the photographs, definitely one of the successes has been that you've sort of be able to not be very noticeable to them, at least at times. You know, you're there in very intimate, you're there in very intimate situations, and of course we've probably edited out the ones where they're including you emotionally in the image. But do you find that just because you've been going back and going back and going back, they pay less attention to you at this point?
I would say that the amount of attention that they pay to me hasn't really changed. I think they've gotten more used to the camera, so they know not to strike a pose and smile, and so we've worked through that. But yeah, I don't think anything's changed. I always have to, you know, manage my time with photographing them, but also being a member of this family as well and making sure that they don't feel that they're being taken advantage of in any way, that I actually spend time with them as well without taking photos.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about managing your time, because you're driving back and forth to the Hernandez, is that the name of the town?
Hernando, it's in Citrus County, yeah.
And that's how far away? And
it's an hour and a half.
And then in the meantime, you're also maintaining a freelancing, right? And so how do you do it?
Well, freelance for me has slowed down since COVID, so I've found that I have extra time. So it's really whenever I have spare time, I'll go up there, or there are times that I'll dedicate that this day I'm going up there because something important's happening. So it's having important conversations ahead of time so you know what's going on in their lives.
And then you already mentioned somewhat the complexity of the fact that you're not just the photographer, but you are also a member of the family. So in some cases they need your help. And then you have to put the camera down and help your Aunt Barb get to the sofa or whatever because she's in such bad health.
Yeah, definitely. I've had to do all of that. I have had to help my mom unload my Aunt Barb's stuff when she was staying with them when she was recovering from surgery. You know, I had to help get the kids dressed every now and then. Sometimes when Aubrey would have one of her meltdowns, she would like be alone in her room and I would go in there and talk to her to make sure she was okay.
And one thing that you didn't mention is that also one of the kids is it has a bit of developmental difficulty. Haven't really delved into that part of the story so much yet, but that's an aspect that maybe still to be developed a little further.
Yeah, so it's speech. He has speech issues. So developmentally, mentally, he's there. It's just he has issues with speaking and he's not potty trained and things like that. So, I mean, I guess, so yeah, he is behind in that regard.
So I was thinking about when we're talking about putting together a story like this, we need to talk about the variety of shots that you're looking for, you know, that you're looking for a sense of place. You're looking for emotional images that reveal relationships of people, details that might tell the story better than, you know, images of the people, the images of their stuff. Quiet moments like this that reveal sort of the not robust health of your aunt. What are some of the other things you're trying to do? Well, we talked about the non-literal images that when you're putting a story together will break up sort of break up the story for the reader and just give them breathing space, or the viewer. Have you thought at all about where you envision this being published? Do you see it in mostly on a website? Do you see it in a magazine, a newspaper?
I haven't really envisioned where it will be published, but I would be happy with really any outlet. So
that image that just passed was one that we talked about, because there was the one before that was, you know, how to get the estranged father, the father who was, you know, actually abused on the young, well, Tara. The mother. And so, you know, occasionally they have this phone call. And so this was sort of the one way, and the way that felt safe for Tina, because since this guy is a drug dealer and an abuser, you know, she didn't really feel safe meeting with him. But, you know, the ways that we try to bring in aspects of the story that are important, and I thought this was a pretty cool image that Tina managed to conjure up for that aspect of the story.
Is there anything, Tina, that I'm just going to throw this one out here because I was thinking about this. Have you, I mean, this is your family, but was there an aha moment or a moment that just clicked that you're like, this is more than just photographing family. I'm doing this like I would do any other story, but you're learning, your empathy is going probably, you know, a mile a minute. Is there anything in this that's really struck you that you weren't thinking was going to be, you know, was going to hit you this hard did you think this story was going to be as important as it really looks to me going through these pictures? That's the question I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, I didn't realize at the time that it was going to be as important as some others may think it is, just because this is my family. I mean, I've seen this all the time whenever I visit, but I understand also the importance of it because it shows people who probably have similar circumstances. So, and then I also wanted to photograph them because I've been wanting to photograph my family for a very long time on a broader photo story that's really not related to this. And so I think this was a really good way for me to start photographing them in a consistent way.
Yeah, and Tina also mentioned to me she wanted to do a story about COVID. Here's a situation where she has access. She has full and free access, and that's a huge part of, you know, how you get a long-term story to happen. So, yeah, and when we were talking about it too, we were talking about how, you know, some of the different themes that have come out, like the relationship of women to make this family, you know, successful through all of the challenges that they're facing. The two sisters, the daughter, the sister-to-sister relationship. You know, how it sort of takes a village, and she's really been able to show that through this imagery. So let's see. So yeah, single parenting, recovering from drug addiction, recovering from spousal abuse, raising children with, you know, multi-generational family, which isn't always easy because they're noisy and busy. The failing health of elderly people, excuse me, school, job training, working mothers, isolation, exhaustion, and raising a kid with developmental issues, and all under the umbrella of COVID and dealing with COVID. So it's a pretty complex story, and we have done a more limited edit. This is sort of what ran on the website, and then with additional, she's been back 2 or 3 times since then, with some additional images with some sort of mini stories within, and we can go through that. Tina can talk about the images, or people can chime in with suggestions and help.
Well, I know Justin and Nima are on for the first time, probably seeing this work. And Justin, I hate to throw you under the bus here, but what were your first impressions looking through that entire take?
I think that the intimacy is really beautiful, and I was kind of watching when you were scrolling through the loose screen of them. It feels like as this project went, if those are the dates that they were shot, it feels like as it went on, the imagery seems to be a little more sophisticated too. There were some at the tail end there that I think were just really beautifully framed images. I think it's one of the hardest things you can do is photograph your family. It's hard. I have a newborn, and I don't take enough pictures of him, and it's hard to do. And I think you've done it really well, and it speaks a lot about your eye and your patience, and as Molly said, your access, which is really key. Even though they are your family, access is different. You have to establish that access in a different way than you are just living in your life. And I think you did a really good job with that. It speaks to a lot of what a lot of people are probably going through right now, in raising children, and all the difficulties we're facing with COVID and the way life has changed. These photos will have a lot of weight 25 years from now, 30 years from now, for your family and for people who can relate to that. I think it's really important we do these types of things. That being said, I'm not doing it. And I think it's really beautiful that you're doing it.
And so many times people don't photograph their families in our profession because they have ethical boundaries and things that just trip them up. They believe in their own idea that's it's honed into them that, oh, I distance myself, I'm not part of the story. And you've really kind of taken that a whole nother level. You're pushing that and showing that. Is there anything that's popped up in doing this that made you realize, do you still feel like you're photographing your family, or do you feel like you're photographing a story when you go to this now? Is there vice versa or not?
I mean, I feel like it's both. I mean, I think for me, it's always first I'm photographing my family because I have a relationship with them, like a stronger relationship with them than I do other people that photograph. But I also see the important story element of it. So I think it's a little bit of both.
I think that's the most important thing, if you can do it in a balance and do it ethically in a way that it doesn't, send up any red cautionary flags or anything like that. It's an honest and true story that Justin was just referring to, that a lot of us just forget to do. I mean, I do it. I forget to do this. I don't do it. Yeah.
Well, I also think that COVID really changed things in terms of photographing your family. Sorry about the ambulance.
Are you okay? Are you coming for you? Are you fine?
So far, so good. Because when everybody went under lockdown, that's all, people had to photograph. And so, suddenly, the Washington Post and Newsweek and National Geographic and et cetera, were all photographing people. We're all running stories of photographers photographing themselves or photographing someone close to them, whoever they could get access to. And that sort of changed the paradigm for what is sort of, okay to do. I think it really probably changed it for good.
And I think we've all now become part of the story. We are part of the story. And you know, the old adage, everybody has a story. Our families are these stories. And who else is going to tell those stories but us? And that's what's great, that you're doing it in a way that, like Jack said too, I've seen lots of photos people have taken of their family, and it's that thin line of walking between what is really happening and the camera awareness, the photographer, and things like that. And I don't have that same sense when I look at your work here. I see the separation, that you're able to walk in and out of that role, which is really hard to do. It's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I believe this story, as important as it is visually telling all those aspects that Molly just rolled off, and I was listening to that and I'm just astounded, because I don't want to say checking the boxes, but really you're checking the boxes on some really important aspects of stories that are needing to be reported. But the most important one, I think, well, probably not the most important, but something that's people are going to look at and really come to grips with, especially a lot of student photographers and young photographers, well, even older photographers like me, is that, wow, during this pandemic, maybe we haven't, or I haven't been working as hard as I should. Hard, I mean, there's things right in front of me I'm just not documenting that I should be. And I think we're all in just this kind of funk, or just this mood that we're just not, hitting it hard, because you're not going into an office, you're not getting assignments. It's just a weird time. And I think people are going to look back on your work and say, that's what I need to be doing. And I think it's going to be a motivational thing, and it already is probably in some respects, of people looking at the site. It's motivated me. I mean, I just look at it and, wow, not only is the imagery great, but it's also a motivation for me to get out there and do some things. I don't know. How about you, Allie? I know you're working, but how tough is it right now? You're not in school, but I know a lot of students I've been talking to are really having trouble and a hard time swinging back into this whole mindset of getting out there, because, it is a pandemic.
Yeah, I am actually in school still. I'm finishing up my photojournalism capstone class while I work part-time at the Bee, which has been kind of like, and then I've also really been trying to get involved with this. So it's kind of been like juggling a lot of things. Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot. It was weird because over the summer I was like so integrated into the public in a time where like that isn't really what you're supposed to be doing, just like constantly working like all day, every day. But yeah, I've been trying to take more time for a project I've been working on for my capstone class on the side, and like dedicate the time that's needed to that, and kind of like pull myself away from like the work mentality. But I do know it is weird for some of my classmates, like getting back into shooting at a time when like people aren't always apt to let you into their lives. So
That's the importance. Yeah, the idea of I guess the Winston Churchill effect of never give up, just always pushing yourself, that kind of thing. It's just it's a weird time. It's impossible to really have a right answer to any of this. I know. How are you doing, Margot? With you've been just out there producing and cranking out great work. I don't know if it's something that weighs on your mind, getting out there, or is that even a thought in your head?
Yeah, all the time.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like probably many of us can relate. There's been this weird, I think the pandemic, at least for me, made me go through this strange shift of like, all of a sudden it's okay to photograph your family and be a part of the story. And that's always something I've liked doing. But I feel like it became a little bit more commonplace in the last few months. But at the same time, it's like, stay out of the public. Don't like do anything that you're uncomfortable with. So there's this constant pull of like, well, I really would like to just stay home today and go to my grandparents and photograph them. But then the newspaper will call and send me to Philadelphia to do an assignment. And it's like, well, is this safe? Is it ethical for me to go and then return to my grandparents who are 80 years old? There's just been this kind of like weird, weird like comfort and also incredible discomfort going on all at one time. And it's not necessarily hard to stay motivated to shoot, but it's hard to stay motivated to go out.
Wow. I mean, I know we had this discussion early on when we had these talks about the just the idea of getting out every day and the ethics behind it. Early on when we had these first talks was something that hit me over the head pretty easily because I haven't really thought about it. People were like, well, and you hit on it, the ethical factor of going out into people's lives as a photographer and bringing your, germs, everything, out into the real world. And how do you do that? Our job is to be out there, and how to do that. That's tough. And for a lot of the younger photographers that are with us, it's tough because the experience isn't there of having years of, internships and newspaper jobs and people telling you, it's okay, this is how you do it. Just go ahead and do it. And having that support system. And a lot of younger photographers are just out there on their own. That's got to be hard. So yeah, that's got to be tough. Let's see, Matt, you're kind of on the, that edge. I see you out there everywhere and still in a community in Ohio that's probably pretty, restricted in some respects or open. I don't know how you've seen it. What are you finding?
Yeah, so I'm in Cleveland, and the cases have gone down a little bit, so it's not as severe as it was, but COVID's still quite a big thing here. So I'm just kind of weighing the safety aspects versus going out. But I've been going out. Kind of my struggle is, since I'm like doing this full time as a photographer, and I do kind of all types of photography to kind of make it work. I mean, I love photojournalism foremost, but with COVID and a lot of the cuts at the Plain Dealer, kind of all my editorial gigs have kind of dried up, which has been really unfortunate. So I've been doing a little bit more commercial work, and I have a wedding tomorrow, and then like elopement. So like just trying to make it work and make money in this really. This time is just kind of crazy for everybody. But you're right, like describing it as kind of a funk. I think everybody's just kind of emotionally and mentally drained a little bit. But yeah, just trying to produce work that I love and make some money at the same time, because as a full-time photographer, you gotta find creative ways to make money sometimes. And when all the editorial gigs kind of dried up, I'm trying to balancing, making some fun photos, making some imagery that's interesting, and then just trying to be safe at the same time. So it's like a very delicate balance here. So just very, very strange times.
I think also, veteran photographers, some of the reasons that they work on these long-term projects is because they need something that they can really dig into instead of daily assignments. And it's sort of what feeds their emotional well-being of being a photographer, is to have that kind of project that you can work on when you're not doing assignments, or, to sort of counterbalance the daily grind. And of course, COVID has interrupted that. I mean, at OU, after spring break, although we went online teaching our, photojournalism 1 students no one actually was allowed to go into the field in Athens or any of the surrounding towns because of fear of, bringing something deadly into the community. And that's still going to be an ongoing fear, especially with case numbers going up in especially college campuses. So it's scary.
That's what I've been hearing constantly through this. In the last day I sent that note out, I've just been getting those responses back, and it's like, I hadn't even thought of it. Stephen Crowley, you
You're
You don't,
muted.
you don't have any audio. There he is.
I love he's got some really strong images, Tina. It's really terrific stuff. What's the story? Where are you going with that story? Is what I was wondering. I mean, to me, it's like this all the incredible pressure on the middle class, and everybody's on this tightrope. But is that? Do you see that as the story? It's difficult to tell, but I mean, when you're there, I mean, you have some really strong emotion in that, and there's some really beautiful compositions. That one in the mirror, and then the doll. I mean, it's like,
Isn't that, yeah, that was a recent image. That's so great.
Do you want me to run through these?
Mother. Well, I'm just curious. Maybe Kathleen could jump in. Where you definitely have something. Don't get me wrong. And where this fits in with our overall project, Molly probably has a better idea on that. But I keep back this Life magazine story, which I could probably dig out here. It was somebody what it was like, this family, a mother-in-law and all that, and the tension of little kids running around. But we're all like the Brazilian coal miners, we're all trapped right now and trying to work within this bubble. So and I think you really are succeeding. And I guess, is that your father, or who's the guy in the man there? Is that the
that's Barb's husband.
Yeah. So what is, he's out working all day, or what's this story? What's he?
Yeah, he's a garbage man, so he holds really strange hours. My dad's also a garbage man too. So people who work in that field, in the sanitation field, I mean, they have to be up and out of the house by like 1 a.m. and then they get home at like 2 p.m. and then they go to sleep. And then it's like a repeat. So his relationship with them is very distant.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a side character because he doesn't really engage very much with anybody.
That's really interesting aspect though. Yeah.
Yeah, he's grumpy. He prefers, if he is home, if he'll have the door open, he's like watching TV in his room with his dogs. He likes animals, and then like the dogs are there with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he watches TV in his bedroom.
Well, I mean, that's a really interesting. Has his life changed? How has his life changed under COVID? And is his job secured? Does he work for a city or a contractor?
I mean, I would imagine his job is pretty secure. He hasn't said anything about his job not being secure, but he's pretty closed off. Like, he doesn't even like it when I point the camera in his face.
Yeah.
So the images I do have of him are images that I catch him like kind of off guard, because he doesn't like his photo being taken. He is actually another challenge in this project is he doesn't really like to be photographed at all.
That leads me to sort of my question as I was going through your pictures. They're very intimate and they're very powerful, and it shows your family's bumps and challenges. Have you thought long-term how this impacts your family if it gets published? Like how your mom's husband's going to feel, since he doesn't like having his picture, doesn't really want his picture taken. How's he going to feel if it's published? And what is the story you're going to say? Have you thought about how that story is viewed by others and the impact it has on your family?
So I've been pretty honest. So like I've been pretty upfront with the rest of them. So my aunt's husband, he knows what I'm doing, but he hasn't really been involved in anything other than that. But I've had pretty candid conversations with my family. I mean, they've read the story that's on the site, and we've had really candid conversations, and so they know where this is going. And so I don't foresee a problem. I mean, because there have been times when my aunt was like, I'm doing this, and I asked, well, do you mind if I photograph it? And she said, I don't feel comfortable with that. And I said, yeah, it's fine. And so I would say everybody else other than Mike, I don't foresee an issue with any of this publishing somewhere, because I mean, what they saw, they love. They're actually very excited.
What's your elevator pitch when you were convincing them to let you do this? Not your
Can I-
elevator pitch to someone like us who's going to publish it, but to your family, to the people that are in photographs.
Yeah, in the beginning, I just told them that I really wanted to show the struggles of everyday life of people living together in a confined space during the pandemic. And then they were okay with that. And then I kind of just went on from that. I told them, hey, this is really important. It shows this and this. And, you know, I think a lot of people can relate to your own story and your own struggles. And they were receptive to that.
Do you think they see the power in their story? Or do they just think they're just regular people?
I would say they think that they're regular people.
So they don't
They
necessarily
are.
grasping.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily grasping the power, because I don't think most of us don't ever think the things we're doing are incredible.
Mhm.
And then others look at it and go, wow, that's really brave of you to have that, allowed someone to do that.
Yeah.
Have they seen any images up on the site that's been published yet?
Yeah, I sent them the link to the story when it first published and with all the photos, and they all had positive reactions to it. My mom loved it. I mean, I think she was just really excited because there was that really cute photo of her and Adriel with their hands up like this, and she was just so excited. And she's like, I need that copy of the photo. And I said, yes, Mom, I'll give you the copy of the photo. And then my aunt, who is somebody who was like, oh, I'm so ugly, please don't take my picture. Like, she's just like really down on herself. She actually ended up liking the images because it was her in like an authentic state. So yeah.
So how has this year changed your family, do you think? Is there any, how has this year changed your family? Has it changed the way they perceive their own lives, or has there been any kind of an awakening among any of the family members on any issue, or not? I mean,
yeah,
it's just,
I'm not sure.
Just a bump or two.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I think it's just them kind of going along with their own lives, because I don't know that they have a lot of time to like stop and think, because it's always go, 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 go. So, but I think that the pandemic has certainly, I think, helped it has created a lot of conflict in their relationships with one another, but I think it's also helped their relationships in other ways, because I think it's helped them like sort out issues. So, yeah. And then it's also like, how lucky are they to have each other, and they support each other in this way, because not everybody has that.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people are navigating it completely alone, you know, and so when you think of that, they may be on top of each other at times, but they do have that family support. One of the culminations was just that the young woman just finally did graduate from her program, and one of the final images is them celebrating that by Zoom. So, I mean, it's always a question with long-term stories, like, where does it end, you know? I mean, that's one ending, but COVID and, you know, living under these circumstances is not ending, so the story can continue for the time being, especially while Tina doesn't have a lot of other stuff to work on, because we're all curtailed in our work, right? And our access to stories.
Tina, are the kids in school, or are they doing remote learning?
They're in school now, and I've asked the school, hey, can I do a ride along to the bus? Hey, can I photograph them inside their classroom? And all these situations that I have never gotten a no from, it's no. And so those have been some challenges. The same with like when Tara was doing her clinical training at the hospital, like I was talking to the PR lady, she's like, you know, we would love to have you, but we can't because of COVID. She said, if she's still here when the restrictions are lifted and visitors are allowed, you're more than welcome. But at this time, you can't.
Hey, Margot, I think you had a question earlier on. I saw a hand go up. Is there something?
Oh, I was just gonna say to Matt, I'm a lot in the same boat. You know, you just take what you can get financially and try to make it your own, with even if it's a boring wedding.
Well, I mean, with what Tina's doing, this long-term project is as a motivator, but also it's a piece of work that it's coming out of this is going to be pretty substantial, and editors are going to look at this and not only think of the work in high regards, but they're going to look at the style and the ethic, the work ethic behind it as something that was, smart. And you took the time, you took the effort, you jumped out there, you just didn't dip your toe into the water. You jumped in and went after it. So that in itself is a calling card to open up a door to get more work and things like that. So the weddings, all that stuff. I mean, even Whitney's wedding, the COVID wedding from Dayton last week or 2 weeks ago, that piece, even though it's something that's COVID related, it fits this project. It's going to be something that editors will look at and see shot well, done well, in a time that's difficult to shoot, making those contacts, making those connections, finding those stories. And as much as great work sells yourself, it's the effort and it's the putting yourself out there and having this I guess this go get it attitude that really will sell yourself. You can't discount that at all. It's really now.
I have a question from the standpoint of something you said that was interesting to me. If COVID had not happened, how would their lives be different right now than what they are like?
How would it be different? I think there would be more freedom to do things. So like the children wouldn't have been cooped up at the house the whole time.
Okay.
Tara would have, in her spare time, would have had the freedom to take them to parks and things like that. And that's really the only huge difference I see. But then, I mean, obviously, like other differences are the way that you interact with other people and the way that you go to the store and all these other things. But the main thing I think is they just all wouldn't be so cooped up together. They would have time, that breathing room to like go out and do things where they're apart from each other and not constantly.
All that litany of things that they have to deal with, it just was each was like a hammer stroke every time. It's enough to have that. It's enough to have, and then this, and then this, and then the COVID. The other question I was curious about: what kind of notes are you making, or how are you keeping in your mind? Are you journaling or something along the way as it goes along, so that when you get to the end of this collective, you'll be able to come back and compare what you saw early on or how you felt early on and change to where you end up? Are you doing that kind of thing?
I haven't journaled in any way of like how it's personally made me feel, but I've taken down notes here and there of like when they say something, or I'll conduct little like short interviews with them after something happens, like the graduation. And so I'm taking little notes on them throughout the whole process, but I haven't really thought about like sitting down and writing how I feel about it.
Anything in their words? Any audio? Is there any audio of this?
Yeah, I have some audio on my phone. But I think that for me, the thing that is like what my aunt said about her health is she's like, I don't think I'm ever going to get over this. And for me, that one phrase that she said has always stuck out to me, because it's just like, she feels so hopeless.
Hey, do we want to look at the 30 some images knocked down real quick? Let's take a look at those and talk about those.
These are newer ones?
This is basically just to give an idea of how to knock this stuff down to a manageable number and why. So, I mean, we can all chime in on this, but Molly especially. I mean, Molly and Charlie and I think have been the at the forefront of this. I know Steven's looked at some of this work too. But we can chat about this, why these pictures are important, why they're here as, out of the 90 plus images that we've looked through initially, what makes these special? Why are they in this collection of images to tell this story? That sound like a an idea there?
Sure. It's funny when with that first image, I was thinking of Marcy, nice one at Ohio. She's like, your opening image is always your best image. And this is Tina's favorite image, and that is why this is the opening image. It's an establishing shot. It gives a sense of place, and it starts to introduce the characters. And introducing the three women who are at the heart of this story, right? Tina, don't have your mute on. So that's the grandmother, and what is that child's name, Tina?
Aiden. Aiden is for boy. So like it's weird. Each kid has like a favorite adult, and that's like his favorite adult as his grandma.
Now, if we went through all these 90 images again, it's pretty obvious. You come to images and you just stop. You look at them and you just stop. And it's interesting to see different editors, which images are the ones that make you stop. And that would be
That's a great image. That last one. That even with the missing side piece of the glasses, it's just a remarkable image. It's wonderful.
Now, Stephen, he sees these details so well when he's editing through this work. You picked up on the Arden's picture last week of the post office and the protest and the sign that had the kind of the information leading down to the sign, and the small little details. And those little details are key.
And her little cigarello too, or whatever she's smoking there.
Yeah.
That's a killer. That's a killer image to me. This picture here says a lot about relationships.
That's what I was taking away from this whole story. Just in my look at it is the relationships. Forget COVID. Forget the multi-generational. It's the relationship, and you really see it in these photographs. That aspect of a family and the relationships within. It's pretty remarkable.
Tina's comment a while ago about each kid has their favorite adult.
Yeah.
That is a detail that is so rich to me. I just think that is very telling.
The image of the mom in the car and the exhaustion on her face and the reflection, that image really just, I agree. I was like, yes, we need that. So funny, just.
That's sweet.
That's an honest picture right there.
Now, there was another picture that showed up I hadn't seen before, and I don't think it's in this select, but it's this picture, but happy. And it's kind of, it's remarkable because I remember this picture, then I saw that other picture this evening, and I'm like, wow, what a nice combination if you played those two on each other. You do have to dig into the story deep and know what is going on, and captions and the dialogue in your text will be key, especially this image right here.
Birthday party. He came out for the birthday party.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. The only guy in the house is really somebody who's very aloof and not really, and I think Tina's images show that, you know, that the fact that he's sort of, even though he's there, he's sort of absent too. And then the real father is absent as well and only available on phone.
I had no idea
So-
until I saw this picture, and this is a remarkable picture.
He's not, so I do want to clarify, he's not only available on phone. She's the only one usually that visits him every now and then, because she's the only one that wants to visit him. The other kids don't have that strong relationship with him because they split when the other two were pretty young. Like the youngest boy doesn't have a relationship with him at all because he was in prison when she gave birth. But she has a relationship with her father, and I've tried to document that, like him picking her up, but this guy like just doesn't, he just shows up. He doesn't plan anything out. She knows that he might come over on the weekend to pick her up, and then he just shows up at odd times.
And where do they go? Where do they go when he shows up? Does he take her out, or does he visit?
Yeah, so they go back to Ocala, which is like the largest, I guess you could call it, city. That's where his family's from. And so she'll like sometimes spend the night at her aunt's house so she can have time with her cousin. And then sometimes they stay in a hotel room because he doesn't have a house. He got kicked out of the house that he was renting.
And this little series starts the first day of school series.
Wow.
Oh, that's great. That's really wonderful.
There we go.
I mean, this story absolutely has chapters, and that's really nice and something we don't all have a luxury of being able to accomplish in a story. And this goes beyond, you know, your basic just in and out, and being able to chapterize this.
That's part of that idea too of keeping your timeline from where you were to how things changed as it goes along. That's key.
This is a unique year, and you have it documented in one family's viewpoint, which is remarkable.
So that was a Walgreen, huh?
Yeah, she had to pick up medicine for my mom because my mom was having allergy issues. And the kids decide that they want to pull everything off the shelf.
Of course.
And then this is a little chapter on the Tara's mom who had to have surgery.
Yeah, that yellow armband is, I knew exactly what was going on, and that, wow. Access, intimacy.
Call me old-fashioned here, but I long for a family picture.
That's wonderful.
I've been waiting to see everybody together, because it's as if you come into this by just looking at it, you keep going, well, wait a minute, how many different people are here? And only when you gaze through them time after time, you start to see, okay, well, there's three kids, but they all kind of look a little different at different situations, personality and stuff. So I'm still wanting to see the group of them.
Are you talking about a portrait, Michael? Would it be something that's more manufactured to get them all together? Because I don't think that they seem to all eat dinner together, or
they don't eat dinner together.
I'm thinking about Olin Mills here, you know, in front of the house or in the backyard by the pool or something. But I think just to see them, because there's power in looking at them and their size relationships, and you know what, if each of those kids has got their favorite, they're going to stand by that favorite.
And if I can just jump in and echo what Michael's saying, I mean, as we've been going through this, I think that's exactly what we need to kind of, maybe even as a starter to kick this off, you know, riff on Norman Rockwell or something and get them all in the front yard with the house in the background, kind of stuff.
American Gothic.
Yeah, set up a portrait.
Yeah.
Think of it as a magazine story with a stylized cover.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it does confusing when those kids are running around. It's like, wait a minute, who's this?
Who's
that?
who? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the two boys look alike, so I get it.
That picture is, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And this, she was getting ready for her graduation here, and it's just such a great, dichotomy with the mom and the ambition that she has, and
Oh, I
think
love,
she just
I
did
love
a
the
great
flowers.
job.
I love the flowers in the vase right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't
the
need to
mask.
see that they're blue.
Yeah.
You just know the roses are there.
Oh, true. Very true. Again, talk about that. Less is more sometimes, and not having to show it all, but just give us a taste. Yeah.
He has the mask on the lower left.
Yeah.
Great shot. Great shot. Nice and clean composition.
Yeah, it's a very storytelling image. And this is celebrating her graduation here.
That's nice.
Her mom wasn't even there for the graduation because her and Mike had to go to Gainesville for one of her checkup appointments. So she was there with her kids and then my mom.
I mean, the problem with any long-term project is it becomes very formalic and just one after another, very, sort of like a recipe where you're like, okay, here's the first day of school, here's this and this, and all the generic photographs. But you're doing it in a way that you're telling the story in chapters, but doing it with, moments, doing it with composition, doing it with images that just aren't your, step-by-step how-to photographs. And that's what's really strong about this whole project.
And Jack, I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. I love the chapter aspect of this. I could almost see this in a vertical or horizontal storytelling where you have a chapter with a lead in with some prose or maybe even an audio clip from the family, and then run through 6, 8 photos and then go to the next chapter. It's a really nice, compelling presentation.
Absolutely.
I gotta bow out. We'll see you guys later.
Bye,
Hey, Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Good work, Tina. That's
Thank
really,
you.
very impressive. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Let me see. No, I think we all get it. I think the idea behind this is, it hits me over the head every time I look at this work and other work. It's just this time and the ability to put yourself in a position where people are comfortable with you being there. And that's, as a photographer, is the hardest thing for me, of just getting in that door and getting people, to welcome me and let me be there. And wow, I mean, this is a story you probably learned a lot on this too, even though it's your family. You've done this before, but it's probably given you an insight of how to do this really well. Any questions, anybody? If different editors went through this take of images, I'm sure if Justin or Nima or someone else or Pete or myself all went through these, they would be different takes of it. And a lot of that is preconceived, just bias on how photographer editors edit sometimes. Who knows? But I think it's really important to have people like Molly and Kathleen and others have those looks at your work and not just self-edit. Any of us self-edit on any of our work. It's good to have other viewpoints and other ideas going through it. To have Stephen Crowley look at your work. Go ahead.
Could I ask a question to Tina and Molly? Was there a reason, Tina, that you didn't put yourself in any of these pictures?
I don't know that I thought about that and why I should be in the pictures. I guess it's because I don't live there. I feel like I'm not a part of their everyday life. And so I don't know that it would be really authentic to put myself in there since I don't live there.
Fair.
Tina, is there an image that if an editor's going through it and says, we don't need this picture, that you'd fight for?
I would say
yes.
Is there one image that you just like, no matter what, you want to make sure that stays?
I that first image I really love. There's something about it that I have always really liked. And then there's also that last image of the kids running when the sun is going down. To me, those are the photos that I like the most.
Because
I think they show really like authentic, like it just shows the relationship that these children have with one another. And I think that they're just shot, and like the other one has got some nice framing, and then the last one is just the light was so beautiful and the joy on their face. Like I just really loved the relationships that they had with each other in those two photos. For me, I always gravitate towards emotional photos. I like emotion.
Because
So.
sometimes the images that you will fight the hardest for will help you to figure out what the story is you want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
It helps to like become the foundation that you build the rest of the story around. So it's just
For me,
like
it's probably it would be relationships, the relationships that they have with one another.
Yep.
I mean, imagine, Tara's life without these other two women really, creating such a great foundation for her to try to, change her life and raise her children in a supportive way. It's a pretty amazing story in that.
The portrait that you all had picked of the three of them, it's not really a portrait, but them in the kitchen through the very beginning, I think to me, that just shows three very powerful women who are supportive, which sometimes doesn't happen in a family dynamic. Sometimes the women can not be supportive of each other. And I think that's a really powerful image. It sort of identifies the characters, and you find yourself looking for those three women throughout the rest of your pictures. It's kind of to what Michael was saying about having a family portrait. It's almost like getting the playbook, so you can look at it and go, oh, that's where this fits in. And that's really what I look at with that portrait of the three women. It's like, they're the matriarchs. It's really very strong.
Yeah, I like that idea. Like it's something that's been instilled with Barb and my mom since the beginning of their life, because their mother was their matriarch. So I think it's them also being the matriarch, because that's how they were taught.
That's almost, to me, is like a sidebar to the whole story, is their bond that they have.
Yeah,
the kids are very powerful, but the bond between the three women is very powerful.
Yeah, and I would say that caring for those children is what created that really strong bond, because like my mom didn't have a strong bond with Tara until she moved in and started caring for the kids. And I mean, my mom and her sister have always had a strong bond because they had a very rough upbringing. So their bond has always been like this. But the bond that Tara and my mom have is because of the circumstances they're in.
Well, a good point that's brought up is that even though you're shooting this as an overall project with an idea in mind, actually having a portrait set up or some type of idea in your mind just to throw in there, you may never use it, but who's to say someone like, Pete or Kathleen, as an editor for the Buffalo paper, like, you know what, we're going to run this, but I really need a portrait. And you already have that in the bag or an idea. It's just options. And
it's a good idea. It's a very good idea.
Sometimes not that it would end up being in the final take in what would be published, but it's a really good way for you to introduce the characters and the story to the editor.
Yeah. Okay.
Cover your bases.
And is that Tara's father that?
Yeah, that's Tara's father. The man is Tara's father. She does not have a good relationship with him either. He's kind of just a background character.
Yeah, so maybe somehow photographing his non-presence, like a pair of shoes, tread marks where his truck was, or something like that.
Okay.
To show this
hard hat hanging on the rack.
This man in the shadows is kind of interesting.
Yeah, something symbolic or metaphorical.
That says a lot right there, because you wonder just what's his role in it, but or lack thereof. So it might be something you might want to find out.
Even if you're there at 1 o'clock in the morning when he gets up and makes his coffee or his lunch, and sort of him leaving the house in the darkness.
I think with all these stories too, you've hit it, and we were talking about chapters, but if this was published by someone who didn't want to publish this entire breadth of essay, you could actually break this apart to fit a need or a niche from somebody at higher ed or at whatever Newsweek magazine is talking about back to school, and you have that those components already built in that you could essay that out, especially with the words and with everything else. So it's really important not just think the big picture is important, I guess, but think these little things that happen during the time frame that you're moving through this project, and hit it hard. Back to school.
And that's what, and again, going back to the whole chapter aspect, is maybe a way to build this out is to think what those chapters might be, or what those thoughts are around some of these, how you can frame it. So if it's back to school, just hit schooling really hard for a couple of days to build that out. If it's the mother or the sister relationship, work on that for a couple of days. If it's the absent father, just concentrate on that. That way you're not just trying to get everything all at once. You're really honing in on specific thematics within the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what's funny is the absent father, like, he's the only one in that house with a full-time job. He's the one that keeps the lights on.
It's very important.
Yeah.
So, and I think the fact that he is such in the shadows is a dramatic way of making that point to her. I think that's a really interesting aspect that you pursue.
If he's getting up at the crack of dawn to go to work and it's dark, and that might be the opportunity to really show that aspect of the father. He's in the shadows, but he's working. He's going off to work.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Him departing from a wide angle shot from across the street, wide, showing the scope, or something moody, whatever. But that
Tina,
really.
Do you know if he drives the same truck every day?
Yeah, same truck.
Does he have any family mementos in the truck?
Oh, I thought you meant his normal truck. Sorry. His garbage truck, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've done a ride along with my dad before, and I don't think any of them have the same truck. I think it's whatever's available, because sometimes things are serviced and things like that.
Right.
It's like.
But also, if there's a place where he keeps his work clothes, his boots, or everything sort of that he's gonna.
Yeah.
Could be a way to represent that too.
Right. He doesn't. Yeah. That's a good idea.
Okay.
There's so much to the story that you're dancing around all these smaller stories, and I don't know where the big impact. I mean, you would think it's the COVID, living together, all together during this time of pandemic, but I don't know if that's the story here. This is a deep story, and there's an aspect to this that has so many different facets that's so intriguing.
It's almost like each individual person is a story,
yes,
and then they tie together. Like, you could almost do chapters on each person.
And how lucky if you have a big family, and since we're all Brazilian coal miners, that you have people to gather around. Which I'm wondering if there isn't a story out there somebody could pursue. Do we know of somebody that's living alone and has no one? I mean, I'm sure there's people in my building here, no one, not even a cat, and how. Well, Mike, you have us.
I like how he says the word cat with such disdain.
Oh,
I don't have a cat.
Oh,
my daughter stole my cat.
Oh, really? I wish you'd come and steal Hamish. I got these brand new slippers. So proud.
I would love to steal Hamish for a while.
Inside's ripped out already, but no, kidding. Anyway, So Molly, you're never alone with us. But I think that's just another, the postman always knows where those people are, which would also be another great story if somebody could do ride-alongs with a delivery company, and that how with a lot of, that's the only interaction a lot of people have is something coming in from QVC or Amazon or something like that. But it would be a complex story to tell. But but I think that this story is so rich, what you've done, Tina, here about family and all that, what's the flip side of that? And maybe something we could pursue, or maybe somebody already has it. Some awfully quiet folks out there. A couple of them have these smiling still pictures of them, so I don't even know if they're really there. Parmathy and Jack, but are you actually there? They're muted with still pictures. I thought Justin had a still picture up, and I actually watched him for a few minutes until he finally moved. So he's there.
I'm here.
And Arvin
I'm here.
always smiles. That's good. So, you guys have any thoughts or anything you want to contribute to this? Arvin, I see your lips moving. Let's hear it. Unmute and let's hear what you have to say. What are you working on?
Well, I mean, I appreciate the going through the editing process and seeing the different chapters in this story. I don't think I've seen a photo story that long before, so it was really cool to kind of see how that was laid out and how it was culled from 90 images to those 36. Yeah, it was also very inspiring. My dad lives alone in Florida, and he's coming to visit me next week, so I was thinking about trying to do something with him. But it's really hard. Like, he was supposed to visit me this week, but I felt like I might have had a close contact with somebody, so we pushed it back a week. And it's difficult.
I wonder, and is there any pressure because now we're supposedly going into another swing of this in the fall? So is this the last time? Are things going to get worse before they get better again? Is there something we need to visualize? Like this could be that last hug, So, so that's something that we need to think about. Not only that, the Civil War that starts on November 4th, and whatever. Anyway, any other thoughts there?
How about you, Scott?
Well, you're awfully quiet. Is that a
still? No.
Okay, that's a real picture. He's on.
I'm on. No, her work actually inspires me because I haven't published these photos yet, but I'm also working on a Hawaiian multicultural low-income people.
Yeah.
So one thing about Hawaiian is once they come and settle in one place, they live there forever. They don't want to leave that place. So there's this place called Palolo where like all kind of generation of a family has lived, and when I asked them why they don't want to leave the place, they were like, "This is home. I cannot leave. Even though I'm willing to die here, but I'm never gonna leave. They can rise up my rent, but I'm never gonna leave." So Tina's work, when it got published in the website, so that kind of is really inspirational to my case, and especially some photos like the silhouette that she took of that one kid passing from the left and two window, and I love the brilliant composition over there. So yeah, that's really inspirational to me.
Yeah, I would really love to see the story that you were just talking about. I want to see that.
Sure. I stopped doing that because there's a person who tested positive. So I'm taking a break, but I was going back and forth from there. So it's in my portfolio. It's in my website already, but it's just I didn't publish it for American Reportage yet. But yeah.
We'll get on that. We'll get it in there. Well, we're going
to Molly or Margot, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What's up with your shrink wrap essay?
It's slow moving. I had sent a couple more in I think September. But I've kind of been balancing that along with a family project. The family project's been ongoing for like 5 years. COVID put a big twist on everything, with that because I was home a lot more, and we lost a family member, not directly due to COVID, but because of not being diagnosed with cancer due to COVID and not seeing a doctor. So that kind of took a little bit more of my attention in the last few months. I do have some shrink wrap stuff, but not as much as I do family stuff right now.
Well, I would just endorse you getting back to that, because I think that was a really some really good work.
Thank you.
I like where you're going with that.
It's
keep going.
smart. You know, everything from the flyer from the West Coast has this orange patina on it. Now you've taken and you've put this shrink wrap patina. You've created that very thing. It is this very impressionistic look at the world in 2020. So you can't lose. I mean, if that stuff's going to age well, it's just a great project, and you know, it's your idea. So
strong concept. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a solid, unique concept that it's brilliant.
One of my friends told me, like Reeve shared the post on Instagram and said, "Glad, please endorse her." Please sponsor her, I think. But no, I actually was going to ask, I might have emailed about this, I can't remember, but there were a few more that I had sent that I never got to like discuss with anyone or anything. And I don't know if I should have labeled them differently or if they just, you know, didn't say the right, you know, send the right message or whatever.
So we probably should relook at everything again and go through everything and do a nice chat with someone.
Did you put them in your original folder or a new folder?
A new folder. I don't know how to get to the original.
So Charlie, they're in in her collection, but there'll be multiple folders.
Yeah, right.
So.
And I think everything I did submit from shrink wrap, like I think it went up on the website maybe whenever the first post was, maybe May. And then after that, I sent 2 or 3 more times, but it was with other work as well.
Yeah.
So it may have been missed.
It's there. It's been looked at, but we just haven't readdressed that gallery itself. We haven't re-edited that gallery. So
that's kind of what I figured.
I think we need to re-edit that gallery with some communication between a curator and the photographer, and that would be great.
Cool. Yeah, because I would also love some thoughts about, like, I always get stuck. I get halfway through something and I'm like, all right, I feel like I have everything. What else can I add to this? And I think for me, the shrink wrap was kind of or cling wrap was kind of like it's an interesting way to visually look at things. Like, we see pictures of people with masks all the time and that gets boring. So just how do I not get bored? That was kind of like my initial goal with it. And I think there's a lot more to play even just with light, but in terms of story, I find that I always need editing help. I like get too lost in the visuals sometimes.
No, and as you guys see, the benefit of having this little group together that we have, again, editing your own work is tough. It's cumbersome. It's hard. You get a viewpoint and you stick with it, and you may not see that small subtlety in your photograph. And, you know, of course, we have an asset here of just people. So let's use it and put it through it.
If you want a fresh eye on it, I'm happy to look at the project.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did I send you an email? Should I send you an email?
Sure. Okay. Or I can just go onto your folder and look at stuff, and then we could meet.
Okay, that's perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, again,
yeah, I'd obviously love to help out on that too. So
great.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. And then maybe we get that edit done, and we can just do a quick, maybe in the next couple of weeks, we have a not a full hour, but just like a refresher, and go through it and shove it up in one of these talks.
Sounds good. Yeah, I have probably more that I haven't even submitted, but I'm not sure.
It's a great idea. I mean, just having everything dumped into the archive more than you think would be appropriate. I mean, just dump it in there. And what
Okay.
happens is everything gets dumped in. It's not public, but we see it. And then that's when
Yeah.
the editors take a look at everything. And that's where, I mean, Arden and a few others have said, "Oh, I wouldn't even have submitted that photo." And you know, it's nice to have some seasoned eyes on your work. So it may not always be right, especially from my viewpoint. I'm probably the worst editor in this bunch, but it's always nice to have some thoughts coming out of just looking at the work.